The Quarantine Sessions podcast with J. Cole.
What's up, Chet?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, bro, how you doing? I'm good.
Look at my evil underlight. Maybe I
Yeah,
could
you
fix
look
that.
especially evil today, I must say.
Okay, that's a little better.
Cool, man. How's it going? You're in LA, right?
Yeah, yeah, just outside of LA. Like
Hmm.
35 minutes outside of LA.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
How's it been over there with this whole lockdown situation and with the riots that have been going on recently? Do you feel impacted by everything that's going on?
Not really. No, I mean I haven't felt any kind of, well, not a lot of impact from the lockdown, just because I never go anywhere or do anything, and I'm just always at home working. So it's like, you know, not too much different. And no, I mean the town I live in, there's been some really cool protests, but they're all peaceful. And
That's good.
I'm far enough outside of LA to where it's hasn't affected me really.
Yeah, I saw some videos of what's going on in the city of LA, and it's pretty intense. It's like
Yeah,
it reminds me of like something out of Gotham City or something like that. It's
yeah.
like out of a movie.
It's amazing though to see how. I mean, it seems like the looting aspect has mellowed out, and now it's just like big, massive protests all over the world. Just incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, it's a revolution, and
Yeah.
it's pretty amazing to witness it in our lifetimes. I think back to, those paintings of the French Revolution, stuff like that.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I don't know, to be alive in this time, like witnessing this really important moment in history,
Yeah, we're lucky.
something that generations from now will be able to say, like, yeah, we were there when that
Yep.
happened.
Yep. Definitely. It's crazy
Yeah, man.
times.
Cool. Well, it's so
Yeah.
cool to talk to you. I mean, I first found your art through Tool, like many people, but when I was in high school and I started getting really into Tool, I started really being inspired by your work as well as Alex Gray's, and I think that you were probably one of my kind of formative artistic influences.
Wow.
I used to
That's
draw
cool.
a lot of kind of monstrous faces that were pretty
And then
directly inspired by your work.
we lost you to the light side. Damn it.
There's all that ayahuasca. I should never have done it. Should never have done the ayahuasca.
No, no. I mean, the whole thing with dark art to me is that it's not really dark. It's actually a uh, it's a path to getting to the light. It's just it's an alternate path that certain types of people like myself, it works for us. Because it's like the result is the same as someone doing outwardly light kind of work. It's all it's I find my peace with expressing monsters basically, and trying to create them beautifully and present them, and you know I don't know, it's what I've always done since I was a kid, and it felt, when I first started painting, I felt kind of guilty about it, like maybe I'm not helping humanity because I'm just bumming people out by me expressing my negativity. And I just kept going, no, this is what I truly love. This is what I feel like am supposed to be doing. It totally makes me happy. So I'm just going to keep going with it and try and, see what happens. And then it just kind of, I went down this path, and it was like, then it all started becoming clear to me that it's like, uh, you know, the, it does it for some people, it hits that right nerve for certain people and opens them up. And it's like the young quote that's on my, I think it's, or it used to be on it's on my Twitter. It's on the beginning of the documentary. Darkness is not envisioning beings of light, but making the darkness conscious.
Hmm.
And it's like, oh yeah, that's how it works. It's like
Yeah.
another way to get there, sort of shadow work.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Carl Jung was big on that concept, the idea of
Hmm.
integrating the shadow. And I think it's really important for anyone. And a lot of my journey to the light, quote unquote, so to speak, has been through the shadow, actually.
That's
You
that's
know?
that's how everybody's got to go through the shadow. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like the dark art to me. It's like it honors the shadow as a
Yeah.
necessary component to enlightenment.
Yeah. And I
You know?
love it. And when I look at your work, it makes me happy too. And it doesn't bum
Right.
me out. I think it looks cool. And
Thanks.
I've always loved dark art and kind of like music that falls on the
Right.
slightly darker spectrum as well, like metal or like certain kinds of dark, electronic music, like gothic kind of sounding stuff. And
Right.
for whatever reason, that just like strikes a particular energetic chord in my heart that I relate to.
Yeah, me too.
It kind of, I feel like the role of dark art also is sort of this pressure release. It's like
Hmm.
this is stuff that exists. These kinds of fears or these impressions exist within the collective consciousness. And as an artist, I think we're all tapping into the collective unconscious when we're creating, you
Hmm.
know, surreal or fantastic or visionary art. It's stuff that comes from this deeper
Right.
place within the subconscious. So by you painting that stuff, you're kind of bringing the stuff that would otherwise be just kind of submerged within
Right.
people's consciousness and their
Yeah.
psyches, and it's bringing them to light so that it can kind of be released, so it doesn't
Right.
have such a thick hold on people.
Right. Yeah. The danger is when it's not processed and expressed, and it's festering. You can see this is what happened in the United States, with the protests at first. It's like, this, you can't have a huge problem like institutionalized racism and stuff and not expect there to be a result like this. If you
Hmm.
just pretend it's not there, which a lot of people just pretend it's not an issue because we had a black president for 8 years. It's like, oh, everything's fixed now. It's like,
Hmm.
the proof is happening right now that you have to deal with stuff. You have to deal with your shadow. America's
Mm.
dealing with its shadow right now.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great kind of metaphor and a great way to look at it, because it's like what occurs on a collective level and what's going on in our society is sort of what also we need to work on within ourselves individually.
Yeah.
So we all have those kinds of shadows as well, like things that we just don't want to look at, aspects of our character, traumas that we've
Hmm.
experienced, whatever it
Yeah.
is. And if you just
Pain.
kind of go about your life pretending that everything's all good and that you're happy, whereas deep down
Th-
under the surface you have these wounds, like that's going to come out in
Those
unhealthy
people,
ways.
yeah, those people go crazy, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, for sure.
So yeah, yeah, it's yeah, it's a trip. Everything is so weird right now. Just this idea that, I don't know, it's like it seems like the world is collectively going through what what the majority of people on Earth are going through internally. It's
Hmm.
manifesting physically. That's what it seems like to me. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
there's this like, massive ego death that has to happen in a major, or at least a certain percentage of the world. And it's like there's part of us that's still holding on to that kind of primitive, tribal, human part of ourselves, and then there's
Right.
this spiritual side of ourselves that's like being revealed in so many ways. And it's like, it's just the kind of the classic battle, but it seems to me like I believe that you kind of manifest your reality to some degree by
Oh
what's
yeah.
going on internally, and it's happening like on this big scale. So I'm going, well, that must mean that a lot of people are sort of at a crossroads in their personal lives, and they have to make a choice.
Mm. Yeah, it's kind
Maybe.
of like that as above, as below principle.
Right.
It's like what
Totally. Yeah.
happens in the microcosm happens on the macrocosm also.
Right. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the COVID situation and the lockdown and so many people losing their jobs, it does have this strangely positive effect because it takes people out of the ego identification of their roles. It's like so many people believe
Mm,
that who they are is just what they do. And that's kind of
right,
something that we're programmed. It's like if you're a doctor, then that's who you are, and put
right,
enormous weight and attachment on this role that you play. But then that can just be taken away from you at any moment.
right,
You know,
right.
so it's like, well, then who are you really? And then people are
Yeah,
forced to go more inwardly and sort of discover, okay, maybe I'm something beyond just this occupation that I have.
right, right. And how real can it be if it could be taken away like that, just in an
Hmm.
instant? Not very real at all.
Yeah.
It's like the real thing is the part of you that can never be taken away,
Hmm.
no matter what.
Yeah, yeah, the thing that's beyond all of our identification and grasping. It's like even being an artist, which is something that I've certainly identified with, and I'm sure you do too. It's like we were something before we were an artist, before that word even existed in our minds, before there was any idea of what
Hmm.
that could be. And like that's not who we truly are. We're whatever exists beneath that, that's perceiving the being of an
Right.
artist.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but all that ego stuff, it's like it's necessary to survive in the world and to, it's like we're made, we kind of come out perfect, and then we're made and then we build this ego structure in order to get by in the world, and then we are supposed to, I think, kind of come to a point where we go beyond it and get back to the baby purity
Hmm.
but with all the stuff you learn through having an ego, and you can't even get rid of your ego. It's not like, ego death is like you get rid of it, because it's not like you ever can get rid of it. The only thing you do is become less attached to it, and
Yeah.
not let it control you. You control it sort of,
Hmm. Yeah,
or
even friends of mine that have had near death experiences where they've literally died and then they've been resuscitated, or people that have really intense experiences with psychedelics or ayahuasca or whatever it is, and they have a full blown ego death. It comes back.
oh yeah,
It's like you
yeah,
you have that experience of egolessness, and it lets you perceive what's behind the veil, what
yeah.
exists behind all of our concepts and stuff like that. But then, just in order to function in this realm, it seems like a necessary component to have self-awareness, and
Hmm.
the awareness that we have agency over our lives and the
Yeah,
other things that exist.
that's part of the game. That's what I
Hmm.
mean. That's why Ram Dass got into spirituality, because he said
Hmm.
he was tired of coming down from the trips. He's
Hmm.
like, you can't, it's not sustainable that way. So he started meditating. It's like you can get there consistently through having a spiritual practice and meditation. You can kind of get to that state of mind and not have to keep coming down and going up and then coming down. It's like
Hmm.
it just takes
Yeah.
longer.
Yeah. Yeah. Besides painting, do you have any particular spiritual practices? Like, do you meditate or anything like that?
Yeah, I meditate. I've meditated all my life. I've, off and on. I've dabbled in, uh, a lot of like visual. My mom taught me creative visualization, the new age
Oh, cool.
version of, it's manifesting your reality. When I was a kid, she taught me, and I used to do it. I did it all throughout my life when I needed like a couple $100 or something, or whatever,
Wow.
whatever. And it
Did
always
it
worked,
work? Oh, wow.
always, every time. So it
That's
was
great.
just, so I kind of grew up just knowing that this was true, and up until a few years ago, I still was like, struggling financially, and I'm like, I know this principle works. This, I can manifest what I need. I've manifested, all kinds of shit throughout my life. And so I started taking these ceremonial magic classes through this website, magic.me,
Oh,
and
yeah. Jason
learning.
Loop's thing.
Yeah, Jason Loop, he's awesome. I had him on my
Yeah.
podcast and everything, and
He's so cool.
yeah, he's amazing. And so I started taking these classes, chaos magic and all the meditation classes he has. And I started, actually, what it got me to do, it was like kind of a confirmation, and it was like a making sense of all the stuff like I kind of knew intuitively, and the stuff my mom taught me and the stuff I read in books. It was all sort of like put together in a disciplined way. It's like, here's how you practice this. Here's how you meditate. Here's how you cast a spell or whatever. Here's how whatever. And so I started doing it in a disciplined way, meditating every day and doing the whole magician's journal and writing down your dreams and doing tarot pull and all that kind of like the discipline aspect of it. And it totally, it changed how my life is now. So now it's like money's not as, you know, it's money's been way better, and my business has been really strong throughout even the COVID and everything. It was weird. It's
Wow.
like, yeah, and so and it's obviously not about money. It's about what I discovered was, oh, you've been lacking in money, even though you're working yourself to death, 7 days a week for 15 years trying to make this art thing happen. It's not that you are not manifesting money enough. It's because you don't have a disciplined spiritual practice, and that's reflected as this kind of lack of money. So it's like money in a weird way is almost like not, and definitely not most of the time, but it can be a reflection like of your spirit in a way, like a manifestation of having a full spirit,
Oh,
and a
yeah.
practice. And so it's like it manifests, the universe wants to give you money, man. It wants you to be happy. It wants you to have everything you need. And it's just kind of like, waiting for you to maybe ask in the right way, or however you want to put it. But, I felt like the lack of financial security was, because I didn't have my shit together spiritually. I was not disciplined about it.
Wow. Yeah, it's
You know.
amazing to hear that that had such a big impact. That's something I would love to learn more about. I've read, some of those books about ceremonial magic, and I've done my own kind of rituals and
Hmm.
stuff. But it would be really interesting. I've heard mostly Jason Live through Duncan Trussell's podcast, and
Hmm.
those are some of my favorite episodes of Duncan's
Yeah.
podcast. He's
You
so
should
interesting, that guy.
you should, if you have the time, what I would recommend is he's got like a subscription on his website. It's like 50
Hmm.
bucks a month. It's
Yeah.
not, it's not too bad, but it's not super cheap either. But just join it for a month and you get access to all the classes. And then
Yeah.
and they're all just videos, like cut in like 5 and 10 minute chunks. And you just watch the videos, and if it's worth it, keep doing it. But it's like, that's what I like about that site is everything is there. It's not like you have to go reading a bunch of different books. It's like this dude's been doing it for over 20 years, and he's done every spiritual discipline and every magical discipline, and it's like he's figured out what is legit and what works, and it's all presented like really kind of simply,
Hmm.
and it's just really great. So I would definitely recommend it because it's been huge for me.
Yeah, I tend to follow synchronicities, and when I have
Hmm.
synchronistic experiences, they kind of are signs for me that I'm going in the right way. But with Jason Live, I had a pretty synchronistic experience because it was a couple years ago. I was driving. I was in the Bay Area, and I drove up to Sebastopol to visit a friend of mine who lives up there. And while I was driving up to Sebastopol, I listened to his podcast with Duncan, and it was the first time I had heard any of his stuff. But he was talking about Genesis Piodridge, who he
Hmm.
studied with, who's from Throbbing Gristle,
Yep.
and he's in the podcast he's talking about uh, you know Genesis' relationship with ketamine and how they used it to access visionary states and used it as a magical practice and stuff like that. But when I got to my friend, we were hanging out for a few hours, and then we were getting dinner together, and for whatever reason, we were talking about ketamine, that kind of came up as a subject, and then she just out of the blue mentioned, she's like, yeah, like I had this friend that I went to high school with that was the daughter of Genesis Piodridge, and Genesis Piodridge kind of like was teaching her daughter about ketamine and how to use it and stuff like that. And but it just blew my mind that I don't even know if I'd ever even heard of Genesis Piodridge before listening to that podcast, and it
Right.
felt incredibly synchronistic that just out of the blue she would bring that up out of
Yeah,
nowhere,
I
you
know.
know. And
Stuff.
that's one of those kinds of synchronicities that I look at that and I'm like, okay, there's something
Hmm.
there that maybe I should explore that a little bit more deeply.
Right.
So yeah, maybe this was the push I needed to just like get that subscription
I
because
mean,
it's really cool.
it's if you can afford 50 bucks to take a chance on something, it's worth it.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's definitely, you'll love it. It's great. it's just so different. It's like ceremonial magic is so different than I thought it was going to be. You know, it's like 90% of it, I think probably 90, 80 or 90% of it is just learning how to meditate really well. So it's like if you meditate already, it's
Hmm.
like most of the work's done. It's like getting the discipline of doing the pranayama and to where you're just like completely still and, you know, trying to get to a point where you can meditate for an hour, no itching, no scratching, anything. You cannot move. You do
Hmm.
the, you know, 15 seconds in breathing, 30 seconds in out, that sort of thing. And all that stuff is like practice for, you know, it's the foundation for any kind of magic you want to do.
Hmm.
And then you realize too when you start doing it that it's you know the in the same way that tripping, the visuals that are so cool, everybody loves all the visuals, those are like not even the important part.
Right.
The important part is that it changes the way you think and the way you perceive things, and breaks your ego down so that you can see things the way they really are. In that same way, the magic, like manifesting things, is like just the icing on the cake. The main part of it is enlightenment. That's what the
Hmm.
main goal of ceremonial magic is. And you know, once you start practicing, you realize, you know, it's all just it's funny how we go around and around to get to this place that we knew all along
Right.
and then forgot about because we got all wrapped up in life and
Yeah, I think it's like when you gain greater agency over this realm and you kind of start to see it almost like you're a lucid dreamer in this reality, then this reality starts to loosen its hold over you, where you can just
right,
see it kind of as like the play that it is, the illusion that it is. And that's a
right.
really big step towards reaching enlightenment because enlightenment, I think, is the awareness of the illusion of reality,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And
Yeah, yeah.
then so, and that's one way that you can start to realize that when you just see how kind of like malleable it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's like realization that you're God playing
Hmm.
playing the Jake Coburn role, you
Yeah,
know?
for sure. What I like about Western magic too is that it's really it was made from the Western mind and it's made for the Western mind. And I
That's
think that
what
the way
that's
that we're
what
in,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, the way that the way that we're trained to think and see the world is pretty dramatically different than somebody who grows up in Tibet. You know, so
Totally.
if you study Tibetan Buddhism, it's like there's this latency of understanding that it's not that comprehensible to somebody for the
Now
Western
you
mind.
yeah, you got to take that. You got to take his course. You got to do it. Just do
All right,
it.
I'm doing it. I'm gonna
Because
do
it's
it.
like that's one of the main points he makes is like people in the West should practice that's their tradition, you know, or you should practice a tradition that is in your heritage because it will resonate with you on kind of like a deeper level. But you know, yeah, people in the West generally should practice Western ceremonial magic because it's like it's a part of our history, you know, it's like
Hmm.
it's our lineage, it resonates.
Does that stuff inspire your art too? Do you find that the symbols and I mean, what I love about Western occultism too is just the symbol systems are so
Yeah.
thick and so potent. You know, when I look at actually when I was in Amsterdam this summer, I went to this place called the Embassy of the Free Mind that's in Amsterdam, and they had an exhibition of alchemical art that was incredible. All these
Yeah.
old original engravings from the
Yeah.
1800s, and you
So
look at
cool.
them and they're amazing, but I have no idea what's going on. But yeah, has learning about magic and the symbolism within it inspired your art to go in any new directions?
You know, I haven't really painted much since I started, to be honest.
Hmm.
I mean, or since I kind of like really got going, I got in a groove and got this regular practice. So I'm kind of waiting to see how it, because it's definitely going to have an influence. But the way I paint, the way I've always painted was it's completely intuitive, you know, 100% intuitive and without questioning my intuition, it's more like I paint what I think would be fun to paint and what I think would be cool to look at for me that I think if I saw it, I would be like, oh, that's badass, you know, and that's it. That's it. And it's like, as I do it, the meaning kind of, I figure the meaning out afterwards, you know, and sometimes it's just like a title will pop in my head that totally fits, and then it makes the whole thing make sense to me. It's a weird, cool way of tapping into your subconscious. And for me, anyway, it's how it works. Like I don't. It's when I'm in the planning stages of the artwork, it's like it's just doodling, it's like when I was a kid, because that's kind of the I became a fine artist when after I already had a career for forever and 25 years or whatever in effects, and then I was
Mm.
starting over, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do? I don't even know what to paint. And so I started doing the monster stuff because I was like, well, I'm just going to go back to when I was the most pure as an artist, and that's when you're a kid and you don't have you're not trying to have a message, you're not or say something, you're just doing it because for the pure joy of it. So, and I thought, well, that when I was a kid, that's why I was doing it. It was the pure joy, and that's it. And I felt like that was the most real I was as an artist. So the stuff that came out were these monsters. So I just kept going with it. Um, I don't remember how we got on this topic though.
Oh, I was asking if the magic stuff has influenced your art, and you were
Oh,
saying you're just talking about your artistic process. But
yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah. No, so I was gonna say it's like I think it'll seep in because the way I create is intuitive. So it's like
hmm
it will probably naturally start to show up in the work, but I haven't had a chance to paint much. And
yeah.
this year, really, this whole year so
Mm,
far, because I've been doing these tool
yeah.
posters,
Oh,
doodles.
cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, what's the process like collaborating with Tool? Do they give you a specific kind of guide? Do they give you specific guidelines for the art, or do they just kind of let you have creative freedom over it?
Well, for the posters, it was just like, they pick the artist and they say, do whatever you want, which
That's
was
awesome.
amazing. It's like the best you could hope for.
Yeah, that's a dream job.
Yeah, total dream job. So it was great. So I just kind of did. I had one already that I'd done as a commission for somebody that was tool related, like a kind of a tool. Um, He wanted something toolish, so I made it toolish, but not specifically based on anything I did for a video or anything or any other visual stuff. And so I had that one, so I let him use that one for a poster, and then I did two others that I just thought would make cool posters,
Fun.
and yeah, it's
That's
fun.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, I've seen Tool live a bunch of times, and it's cool to see the work that you've done with them and the music videos being shown on these gigantic
I
screens
know.
above them. I mean, that must be such a cool experience for you to see.
Yeah. I mean, when they used my stuff the most was the I think it was when they were touring. I can't remember if it was. I don't. Maybe it was a Lateralis tour. I did a bunch of, aside from the video stuff like Anima and Schism and Parabola and stuff. I did all these live or 3D animations
Hmm.
because I was into 3D for a while. I started getting into digital 3D stuff, and so I did all these creepy, weird um, looping 3D animations, and they started using those. And then just kind of like Adam saw one of them, and he's like, "Hey, can we use that?" And I was like, "Yeah, go for it." And then they had me make a bunch for them. So it was pretty amazing to go to that when I went to this show in LA, and then they put up one of my animations. It's like one of my signature animations I did for them, and then it's like it was before the song came on, and they started looping it, and then everyone was like, "Rah!" Like I got the Tool cheer, but it was like it felt like it was for me because it was my
For sure.
my thing they were cheering, so it was like, whoa, that is really kind of crazy, you know.
Wow, cool. Yeah, that's a
So
very
that was pretty
different
neat.
experience than most artists have. Like you just go
Hmm.
into a gallery and the best you get is people are like, "Wow, I really like that painting."
You're
And then
right.
you got the roaring cheer from a metal crowd.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, and it's like I've seen my work in movies for years and my name in the screen on the end of credits. And it's like, after that happens the first time, It's like, yeah, it's totally old hat, but to have people cheer like that, even though, they're really cheering for Tool, but still just to kind of be a part of that, was pretty cool.
Yeah, and so many people, I bet, go to their concerts in such a expanded state that it's like
Hmm.
you're
That's
claiming
for
real
sure.
estate over their imagination. You're like,
Right.
screwing the corkscrew in real deep into their
Right.
third eye.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Wow, that's awesome. I wanted to pull the conversation back just a little bit because you mentioned that you weren't painting and you were working in effects, and then you started painting again from scratch. And I wanted to
Mm.
ask you a bit about what that process is because I talk to a lot of people who quit painting for whatever reason, but they want to start, and it can be really challenging for
Yeah.
somebody to get back into painting after not doing it for a long time, and all the kinds of mental blocks that come with
Mm.
that. So what was that process like for you?
Well, it wasn't like I really ever did it in the first place because I spent 20, 25 years in effects right out of high school. I was totally into makeup effects and creatures, and so I would draw all the time. So I was really good at drawing, but I wasn't painting. It was like all drawing, pencil work, and designing masks and stuff. And sometimes doing drawings of scenes and just drawing all the time. And then when I got in effects, I was primarily a sculptor, so I was sculpting all the time. And also a painter, but it's like painting a monster suit or a mask or something. So it's like you're painting on a 3D surface, so it's more about how do I make blotchy skin, how do I paint veins, and you learn about color and color theory and stuff. But as far as composing a painting, it wasn't something I did used to do and then stopped doing and then started. It was like I never really did it. I was always like I'd paint once a year. I'd make a painting maybe for a gift for somebody or um, and then in creature design, I started when Photoshop came around, and when I learned that in the late '90s, I was doing stuff on a tablet, and I started kind of painting in the computer in Photoshop, and so what happened was I was on working on the Planet of the Apes remake, like the Tim Burton one.
Hmm.
It was around 2000, and I was thinking that I wanted to that I was just totally sick of the whole movie business, because there's really a lot of really shitty aspects to it, and I wasn't feeling like I was able to get my vision out there. So I did a little test painting because I was on set sitting with a bunch of acrylic paints to touch up gorilla gloves. I was sitting there 12 hours a day. They were having fight scenes with chimps and gorillas on horseback. They'd come back, the fingers would be all scuffed up, and I'd have to paint them. It was really
Oh
boring,
man.
and then send them back out. And so I had this little pad of paper for sketching. I had these acrylic paints, and I was like, okay, I'm going to try a painting. If I can paint a little painting that looks good, then I'm going to really try and do this. And so I did it in acrylic. It's like, oh, this looks good. I can do this, I think. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be a painter. And then I started like messing around and reading books and trying to teach myself to paint in oils. But, when I first sat down to do it, I just completely was blank. Like I was like, oh shit,
Hmm.
I've been talking for so long. I wanted to be a real artist, and now I'm sitting in front of an easel and I don't know what to paint because I was like institutionalized in a way because I grew up in this film industry where it was like someone comes to you and wants you to make an alien or a dinosaur, or they give you some starting, a werewolf with big teeth and it's wearing a red shirt. So they give you like guidelines, and then you can work from that. But I wasn't used to just coming up with a concept completely without any kind of input. So I kind of had this moment of uh, panic sitting in front of this easel and this blank canvas, and it was really scary. So I was like, I'm fucking getting my moment here, and it's like I got nothing. But so then I just started messing around and just throwing paint on the canvas, screwing around, and it probably took me I don't know, a few years, probably really 5 years maybe of messing around before I kind of stumbled upon something that seemed to be popular and something that I enjoyed doing, which was these kind of realistic monster portraits. And once I struck on it and I saw, oh, people, people are buying these. like really fast. People love them. So I thought, oh, I'm going to try and do this because I was, I'd experimented and done like weird, different styles, and I wasn't really sure where I wanted to go. But yeah, so once I found something that was doing well, I just kept going with it, and then that I just developed it, kept developing it, and yeah, and that's how it went.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's important to emphasize. I mean, 5 years seems like a long time, but I think somebody might look at your work and just think that, right off the bat, you knew what you were doing. And people get
Yeah,
so frustrated. People get
no,
so deterred when they're starting out and they're in that process where they're trying to figure out how to
hmm,
paint or their style, and people just kind of expect that it's going to happen
yeah,
all of a
yeah.
sudden. But it's a long process for everybody, no
And
matter
it's not, yeah, and it's
who
not
you are.
like, yeah, and it's not like I don't, it's not like you go, okay, this is going to be my vision. It's going to be, I'm going to use these colors and I'm going to paint this sort of thing. And okay, now I'm going to do it. It's not like, it's not an intellectual process, I don't think really, to where you sit and you think, what do I want to do? And then do it. It's more like you get there by doing it and practicing and
Hmm.
practicing. And then it starts to, um, develop as you paint more. You have to let yourself play and experiment. And yeah, it takes it takes years, I think. I mean, you might take 6 months. You never know. It might take a year. It might take 10 years. It's like different for everybody. But for me, it was like, you know, it was probably like 3 years of messing around with oils before I hit on those portraits. In the first couple of years, I was doing like digital Photoshop stuff, like creatures and Photoshop. So I kind of was doing it there. But that, digital oils is a whole different thing. So. But yeah, it takes time. Everybody, especially nowadays, it's like everything, everybody is so used to getting everything fast, and something like your voice, your artistic voice, you can't get it fast, unless
Yeah.
you're a genius or something.
Well, I mean, it seems like there are occasionally artists throughout history that just get
Oh
struck with
yeah,
the noetic lightning, like Robert
yeah, but
Venosa.
yeah,
Robert Venosa,
there's
so he had his first LSD trip, and then his first painting ever was like this Adam Christ painting that's just like a masterpiece. And
really,
it's like, how did that even? But that's he's a rare case.
yeah. Or Frazetta was the same way, man. He was like,
Oh, right.
Frazetta was a genius, like as painting when he was a kid. Like he was painting these amazing things when he was a kid. So he just had it, But that's rare. That's not like most of us.
Yeah. For
Most of
mere
us,
mortals like us, it takes a lot of work and time.
yeah,
Yeah. No, Frazetta was a genius. I mean, there's stories about him. Like he, learned anatomy in one night. His
yep,
his teacher was like, "Oh, you need to learn anatomy. Here,
yeah.
check this book out."
Yeah.
He
Copy
comes
this,
back the
yeah.
next day, and it's like
Copied
he's
everything in
copied the entire thing. He's like, "Oh,
yep,
I know anatomy."
exactly. Yeah, that's rare. That's rare.
Yeah, that's kind of like Matrix level where you can just download, the
Yeah.
information automatically.
Yep.
And besides Frazetta, like, who have been kind of your primary artistic influences? I know your father was an artist also.
Yeah, James Zar, he was great. Yeah, he was a big influence because he was a great painter, and he came into my life when I was about 6. I think they got married when I was 9 years old. And but as soon as he came around, there was just artwork everywhere in the house, and he was painting every single day. So he helped me do my first oil painting. I think I was 9 years old. I still have that. And yeah, just being around it more than anything. Just being around a working artist was big. And that seeps in through osmosis. Just seeing art all the time that looks right. That's a good way to learn when it's just around you. But he got me into Frazetta actually, and my big three are like Frazetta, H.R. Giger, and Beksinski are the kind of the
Those
top my
those are three I would guess for you.
yeah, those are my top three, I guess you could say. I mean, I of course there's a million others. There's a lot of contemporary artists I love, peers and stuff. Um, but there's like regular artists like Norman Rockwell, I'm a huge fan
Hmm.
of, and you know, N.C. Wyeth, and just all these old pulp illustrators from the 50s. He used to illustrate the pulp magazine covers are amazing. Um, yeah, so but those are the three that, you know, made me want to paint for sure.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Beksinski's work still touches me in a way that almost no other artist ever can.
And he
It's
was so
just like,
prolific too. It's like so many paintings. It's unbelievable. He painted so many paintings with barely
hmm.
any clinkers. You know, they're pretty much 90% of them are just like total masterpieces. And then he's got some that aren't quite as masterpiece, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, his art is interesting too because it's such a parallel to his kind of like his life was a little bit tragic,
Mm.
and he was murdered and all this stuff.
His son committed suicide. His
Really, I
wife
didn't know
wife died of
that.
cancer.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
I just watched a movie that they made a movie called The Last Family, I think. It's like a Polish movie. Um, it's a movie about him and his family, like
Wow, I didn't
a
know that.
dramatization. It's really good, yeah, and it's just basically about how the son had mental illness, but his son was like a famous DJ in
Hmm.
Poland. He became this famous DJ, and but he was actually like a pretty upbeat dude, you know. He was not like a downer guy at all. He was like a cracking jokes all the time, and from what I've read from interviews, it's the same way. He was like, you know,
I've
he
heard that
wasn't.
about Giger also. That like he
Yeah,
was,
yeah,
really funny and charming guy, like
yeah,
not
yeah.
all dark and creepy all the time.
Yep.
I think he
Yep.
put on the dark and creepy persona just to mess with people. It was like part of his, his art shtick.
Yeah, well, you know, it's like he can't help if he looks kind of creepy. He looks
He
kind
definitely looked kind of creepy for sure.
of he's but you know, it's like that's who he was. He was amazing, amazing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have maybe like 15 minutes left. I wanted to open it up if anybody wants to ask either of us any questions. Anybody that's watching this right now can leave a comment and ask some questions for us.
Yeah, ask away. There's been a bunch of people asking, but I haven't been able to catch them as
We
we were
can see
talking.
what's going on here. Mark asked when you started practicing ceremonial magic.
I think it was only like I dabbled around in the 90s, you know, but seriously, I started practicing probably only 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, is when I started, you know, doing it for real and learning and knowing what I was doing instead of just kind of feeling my way around, making my own
Hmm.
shit up. Yeah.
There seems to be a kind of scene for that in LA. Like when I was in Hollywood, I went to, I think it was maybe it was the Order of the Golden Dawn Lodge or
Hmm.
something, or it was no, it was the what are they called? I forget what they were called. It was one of those kinds of magical
Yeah.
lodges, And the interesting thing is that whenever I kind of explore that stuff or I go to meetings, it's a lot of like older people.
Hmm.
Like it's like people in their like 70s or 80s
Yeah,
that
it's a
seem to
trip.
really get into that stuff. And even when I went to that place, the Embassy of the Free Mind in Amsterdam, there were all these kinds of old ladies studying like some
Right.
magical stuff.
It's so cool. That's like Jason talks about that in some of the courses that you know, Freemasons and stuff. They're like these old dudes, you know,
Hmm.
and it's like you kind of go and you join these lodges, and it's sort of like they give you guidance. It's like very traditional and kind of wholesome in a way, you know. It's like, you
Hmm.
know, mentorship from older folks. Yeah,
Yeah, it's not quite as like Ozzy Osbourne, I think, as
it's
people
not, yeah,
make it
it's
out to
not
be.
at all Ozzy Osbourne. That's the funny thing is that, you know, people see pentagrams and it's like, okay, it doesn't mean what you think it means. It's like you're taking all the baggage from Hollywood and people that didn't understand it in the first place have these meanings they put on it, and it's like it's like that. You know, a pentacle means means the earth element. It's
Hmm.
not this evil thing. A lot of the Western ceremonial stuff, the ceremonies are like it's like about it's very kind of, Christian-y, really. It's like so surprisingly Christian-y. That's one thing that kind of shocked me. It's like people think it's Satanism, and it's like it's actually a lot more like Christianity. It's like you're
Hmm.
calling down on angels to protect you, and you're trying to get in touch with your holy guardian angel as
Hmm.
a metaphor for, basically your higher self, and all the kind of incantations and rituals. I guess maybe because there's the Goetia stuff aspect of magic that you can do, which is like conjuring demons. But
Hmm.
even those are, they're like you're if Jason's not even really into teaching that either. He's kind of like, you don't need to do it that way. That is one way you can do things. You can do it yourself, so why even mess with that stuff? But I've been following this guy Lon Milo Duquette lately too, who Jason recommended as the world's greatest living magician. He's like,
Whoa.
he's an older dude. He's been reading um, chapters from his book. He's on Facebook, and so I've been watching those every day. Really cool, really funny, upbeat, lighthearted dude. Knows his shit. He's got a great book called The Chicken Kabbalah, where he teaches Kabbalah, and it's like kind of
Oh yeah, I think
in a
I've heard of
funny
that
way. It's
before.
really amazing.
Hmm.
It's so amazing. But he's like, I'm actually Wednesday. I'm going to take a class from him, an online class about the Goetia. It's like not because I'm probably, it's not that's not really my style, which you'd think maybe it was because of what I paint, but I still want to learn about it, know what it's all about. But he's got a book called Low Magic, and he talks about working with demons, and it's like it's not like if you're doing it right, it's like you are calling up it's your personal demons, and you're binding them, as a way to make them work for you instead of work against you, kind of,
Hmm.
and it's just kind of like one of the aspects of magic. So I think maybe
Right.
that's what people Hollywood latched onto, is stuff like
Hmm.
that.
Well, I think it's also like you can demonize a certain aspect, and then you can do banishment rituals. Like
Right,
you can do that to help quit smoking or something. Like you
right,
create
totally,
a demon, and then you can create a sigil that represents your smoking habit, and you can do a banishment ritual around
right,
that, and that can help give greater
right.
power towards quitting smoking. So it's not necessarily, I mean, it could be, but it's not
I mean, yeah,
necessarily
but I mean,
invoking an actual demon.
yeah, in the same way. I mean, in the same way that someone who claims to be a Christian can be a KKK member. It's
Hmm.
like if you could be a magician and do evil shit with it, you could,
Hmm.
but why would you want to? You're missing the point.
Right.
Why would you be a Christian and be a Klansman? Why would you be racist and be a Christian? It's like because you're missing the
Hmm.
point, and
Yeah,
you're
for
and you're
sure.
stupid or whatever. You're misusing it. But uh, I mean, that's the people usually get into magic. I think through chaos magic,
Hmm.
because chaos magic is like more you sort of make your own stuff up, which is it's actually kind of really fun, where you kind of like make your own spells up, and it's like artists are kind of more geared towards chaos magic, um, because you basically it's like chaos magicians in the 70s, I think in the late 70s or early 80s, these guys came up with this concept. It's like all the other ceremony is it's trappings. The real magic happens in your mind, so it's like as long as you know that, you can kind of make the rituals up as you go and suit them to your own style. And that's also something that's covered in the courses as well. um, I don't know why I brought that up. I just thought of that.
Yeah, cool.
There was
Um, well,
another
here
oh.
somebody submit a question to me that well, okay. There's two questions for you. One is, I just left corporate America to pursue art. Do you have any advice? That's a good question.
um, uh, you know, it, yeah, that's a big question. Um, I would say make sure first and foremost that the art is amazing that you're doing. That's my rule of thumb. It's like focus on the art, make the art amazing. If the art's amazing, you won't have so much trouble marketing yourself and feeling weird about putting your name out there, and because one thing you have to learn to do as an artist nowadays with social media is you have to learn to market yourself and let people know that your work exists and sell and push yourself. And if you know your work kind of isn't very good, you're gonna, in the back of your mind, you're not gonna feel right about pushing it. But if you believe in the work and you think it's really badass, then it's gonna help you get through this difficulty of marketing and stuff, I think. So
Mm-hmm.
first, the art is first. The art is always first, but then don't be afraid to market. Don't be afraid to embrace the business aspect of things, because it really is a business. You can
Mm-hmm.
you can say it's not, but it is. If you want to make a living at it, you have to approach it like a business.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah,
and
I think that's important. I think a lot of people have a stigma against kind of monetizing their creativity or whatever, but that's just the reality of being a professional artist, is that you have to be comfortable with that.
yeah, yeah, and it's like you you have to. I mean, it's like you have to take the trash out. You have to take a shit. It's like you have to do all these things you don't want to do. Whatever. You have to go to the doctor. It's like you got to do all kinds of stuff you don't want to do. Just because you're an artist doesn't mean you don't have to do all those things, and it doesn't mean that your art's not real or pure. It's like if your art should be the art, and how you sell it is like a totally separate thing. But
Right.
having a corporate background, actually, if you approached how you sold your art and promoted your art and organized your business, your art business, with the background of corporate America, a corporate business, that's great. So that's kind of like a good thing to have,
Mm-hmm.
I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
You know.
We have about like 5 minutes left. I want to ask you a question, which is, if you were able to talk to yourself when you were
Hello,
just
everybody.
starting,
People are
yeah,
saying
hi,
hi. Hi,
hi everyone.
everybody. I wish I could answer
Uh,
all the questions, but what were you? I'm sorry. I
oh,
didn't mean.
so if you could talk to yourself when you were at the process of just starting out as an artist, what advice do you think you now would give yourself then?
Uh, don't worry about money, because the more you are worrying about not having enough money, the more you are manifesting not having enough money in your life.
Oh
And I
yeah.
knew that back then, but I just kept fucking worrying anyway. I couldn't stop myself because I wasn't meditating and I didn't have a clear mind. So I realized that, I realized there was a point that, just really quick before we go, every month I was able to pay the bills because I was working very hard. I was putting the work in, um, and selling and marketing and making the art, and I was really doing it. I was giving it everything I had, but I was still not, just barely making enough to pay the bills every month. Every month it was like, I'd have to like $20 in the bank to my name, and I had to pay up my mortgage. And so I was like, I gotta hustle. Oh my God. And it was just like this every fucking month for like 15 years. It was
Mm.
crazy. It was insane. And I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I somehow am managing to pay the bills, even in the most dire circumstances. So there's something is up here. Something's going on here, because I haven't been kicked out of my house, or been homeless, or lost everything. It's like I'm somehow managing every month. So maybe if I just stop worrying about how the money's going to come, it will just it will come the way it always does, and I'll keep working hard and try and give the money every opportunity to come to me. But I'm not going to worry about it not being there. So I kind of like tried to reprogram myself to not worry. Every time I started worrying about money, I was like, okay, I'm not going to worry. It's going to come. And it took a while, but then that's kind of like when things started getting better for me financially, little by little, is when I wasn't worrying. And then I kind of had the realization that, I'm basically manifesting not having enough money all the time. It's like I'm thinking about it. If you're thinking about how you don't have enough money and you're scared that you can't pay the bills every fucking day, what do you think's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
You're not calling money from the universe towards you. You're actually like repelling it. So it's like, you have to get rid of those kind of thoughts, and that was kind of the first step for me, really. So
Mm. Yeah, I really struggle with that sometimes too. So I really appreciate hearing that. I think it's really important, our mindset and the energy that we're putting out and how that
Yeah,
attracts circumstances to our lives. It's
yeah,
really
yeah.
powerful.
And then when you go and do your magic, do your magic to. I used to like be like, oh shit, I gotta pay my taxes. I owe $10,000. I'm gonna do some magic for $10,000, and I would do this magic, and I would get the $10,000 randomly, and then next month I would still be fucking broke again, and I would have no money. So I got to a point where it's like, do your magic. If you're having financial struggles, do the spell or the working for financial security.
Hmm.
Just manifest financial security in your life, and it's like then everything kind of takes care of itself, and it's not like you're just bills keep coming up, you don't have the money to pay them, then you got to do it working for some money, and it's like it was that was a big one for me too. So that would be my advice. I don't know.
Awesome. No, that's perfect. It's really, I mean, it's really applicable to my life. I'm sure other people listening too probably get a lot
It's
out of that.
it's applicable to every artist, man. It's like every artist I know struggles with money. It's like part of it is cultural baggage. The
Hmm.
artists have to be starving, and it's like they don't. There's artists that are millionaires, and
For sure.
they're not these blue chip people that do like stupid sculptures that don't make any sense, and super rich people. I'm talking like people that sell like canvas clays in like kind of slightly high end mall art galleries. It's like there's people that make millions of dollars selling like pictures of paintings of boats and shit and it's like you can make a lot of money doing it. You just have to learn about marketing and business and get your personal shit to spiritually get yourself together. And it's like you can, it's no reason you can't make at least a decent living.
Hmm. Fuck
So
yeah, man.
that's my
Well,
message for the
I
day.
like it. I like it. Yeah, inspiring and empowering. Cool, man. This
Cool.
has been
Yeah.
so fun. Thanks
Yeah.
for taking the time to talk to me, and thanks for everybody that's been listening to this so far. I'll
Yeah.
have this posted up on my page if you want to share it, or if anybody wants to listen to it again.
Dude, it makes me want to buy a monster right now, someone said.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if you buy a
Yeah.
monster, it'll help you become a millionaire. That's what Chet's saying here.
That's right. Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. That was super fun.
Yeah, man.
I'll have
This
you on
was
the
really
podcast
fun.
if you want to be on my podcast. I'd love to have
I'd
you
love
on.
that. Sure, that'd be fun. I like doing podcasts, so like, let's do it.
Cool. All right.
By then, I'll have some experience doing this magic course. We can talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hit me up about that if you got any questions.
Yeah, for sure, man. All right. Well, be well. And
All right.
thanks again for everybody that's been
You
listening. I
too.
hope you enjoyed this chat. Much love, everyone.
Bye.
Quarantine Sessions podcast with J. Cole.